You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Welcome, and it's good to see all of our audience out there. I am Doug Draper, and with me is my partner in crime, Pete Mento, and this is Global Trade This Week. Of course, it's sponsored and brought to you by CAP Logistics. Please visit caplogistics.com. They work the boards and make all this happen, my man. So now we'll jump into it. Pete, how's your weekend? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I had a very rare daughterless weekend. I got a lot done. I saw my nephew play some baseball. I saw the new James Bond flick, which was fantastic. I don't know if you're a James Bond guy, Doug, but it was a great movie.
I did see it as well. I went by myself. I came to the point where going to a movie by yourself maybe a few years back was like depressing, and you wonder what people are thinking when you roll into the theater. And you know what? People probably don't even care at all. And I go to a movie and enjoy it, and we're good to go. So I went solo, enjoyed it. The ending was a little shocking. It'll be interesting to see what transpires in future with the franchise, I guess.
Yeah, I got to ask you, Doug. Now, I'm on my diet here, so I can't have treats like most people. But for me, I sneak in my my high protein cereal that I'm allowed to have on my diet as my crunchy snack. And, I get a, whatever, like a soda or a soda water.
Yeah.
Are you a sneak in your treats kind of guy? Are you a hand over your credit card and pay $30 for some Raisinets and some popcorn kind of a dude?
Yeah, no way. I'm gonna sneak it in or eat a lot of food before I go. But the snack of choice, late Saturday. So Pete, I also take the late afternoon, so I still get the matinee price, but it's you don't blow the whole night. So the snack of choice was a bag of mangoes that we bought from Sam's Club.
Wow.
So not the whole bag because they're massively large, but yeah. So I ate mangoes and hung out with James Bond. So
I did the 2 bags of high protein cereal and my and a crap ton of soda water. But my theater was packed. I don't know about you, but it was nice to be in a theater full of people watching a movie again, although I'm not sure if that's good for the pandemic, but it sure was good for my soul.
Yeah. No, mine was pretty empty. So I was in a row and an aisle all by myself. But I'm the guy that has to be on the aisle, right? So when the gig's up, just get the hell out of there.
Man.
I'm not middle of the aisle messing around with my stuff, walking over and climbing over somebody. So I'm an end of aisle mango guy this weekend.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we got some good topics for today. I don't know. Since I did the intro, I guess that means you're rolling first.
Okay, yeah. This is going to be one of those really grinds my gears kind of weeks. I got a couple of things that I'm deep on. The first is there's been an underreported topic this week where the United States, with a couple of other countries, has been really pushing the agenda globally of trying to establish a minimum tax on corporations around the world. And you might wonder why. Well, a big reason for that is, you'll see in the papers occasionally these stories about how big American corporations, as an example, end up paying no income tax in the United States. If you follow that story more closely, you'll find that because they are large global concerns, they do end up paying taxes in other parts of the world. Now, maybe not as much as we might think that they ought to pay, but they end up putting their profit through other nations in what's called transfer pricing in order to have the best possible mixture of profits and losses in all the places that they operate so that they have the lowest possible tax payment. We all pay taxes, at least I hope we do, and we are all subject to different types of tax rules. They're just taking the best possible benefit for the benefit of their shareholders. Now, there's some countries that give better treatment than others. There's some countries that if you play it right, you still pay a ridiculously low amount. And what the United States is trying to do is to try to get at least a baseline that makes us competitive so that more profit is kept in the United States. Why are we doing it now? We're doing it because there are certain types of planning that people can do with regards to technology development, R&D development, and the way that we're putting so much money into this new technology economy that make it actually more beneficial to be based in places like the United States and Western Europe. And we'd like to see it stay that way for some time. But this has a lot to do with trade, more than people realize. And as we're trying to consolidate that IP function and the development of technology, we'd like to keep it here in the West and not in places like China, where we're worried that that technology is going to end up being stolen and promulgated. So, Doug, I think it's a big deal with the way that we look at the strategy for production and the strategy for how we develop companies going into the future. And I think you're going to be reading more and more about it over the course of the next couple of years.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the first thing that popped in my mind that was who's going to regulate it or make sure everybody is on par, right? Once you define a minimum or a maximum or any threshold, who's going to make sure there's compliance and following the rules? So the question is, who's going to do that? How much effort is it going to take? And how do you manage governments all over the world? So I think conceptually it sounds good. And I totally get that the idea is to bring more of the technology and those type of things back into the U.S. But I think there's better ways to do it. I think there's better incentives than trying to manage the world on a unified a tax code, right? We can barely even do that here in the U.S. So that was the first thing. See, Pete, the great thing about our conversation is I take a simplistic view from Midwestern Kansas, and you have a better perspective on the global trade in some instances. And so I'm looking at it in the sense of who the hell is going to audit, manage, and define it.
Well, I just want people to pay. And I would prefer they paid it into our tax system rather than somebody else's. So anyway, well, you're probably wondering why I'm suddenly all by myself here in the Global Trade This Week studios. It's because Doug had a fire alarm. And because we're always worried about safety above entertainment, Keen and I were like, go, turn off your laptop and get out. And Pete will finish up his bits, and, maybe we'll get you back on here. Maybe we won't. But my other topic in halftime, or something I want to discuss today, halftime today I hope it goes up today, but today is November the 11th, and that means that it is both Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day here in America. And for me, it is a split of my heritage. I am both Native American and Italian, so a bit of a confusing day on just exactly whose side I'm on. But for me, I thought it'd be an interesting day to bring up some topics about Native Americans and international trade here in America, particularly some really fascinating pieces of, Doug's back. Some really fascinating pieces of business that have to do with international trade and Native Americans here in America. So I'm just going over my topics for halftime. Then we'll get back to your topic in a second, Doug. Just a very big interest to me is the fact that Tesla has recently started opening up car dealerships on Native American lands because they are not subject to the retail dealership laws of other states, which means that they don't have to sell through dealerships. They can sell directly as a car company. And it's also given incredible benefits to a number of reservations. Secondly, all of the call centers that are being opened up all over America on native lands as well. And the third that I wanted to bring up is a number of arguments that are being made that because Indian reservations are sovereign land, they should not be subject to tariffs and taxes. Now, right now they are. If you were to import into a reservation or into Indian land, they would be subject to taxes under American law. There is a move afoot to fight that, saying that because they are sovereign lands, because they are not considered part of the United States, and they have a different federal law enforcement and all the rest of it, they should be able to import akin to what would be a foreign trade zone. This would be an interesting twist to the law with regards to e-commerce. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. I doubt it, but it'll be fun to watch. In any case, it's a great day to both celebrate Italian American heritage and Native heritage, and I tip my hat to both of them. So, Doug, that was my halftime, which I guess I've done early. I'm glad that you didn't come back burned to a crisp, my friend. So,
yes.
What was your first topic for today?
Yeah, we'll see how all this pans out. So, how about this, right? I'm just going to roll into my first. I was going to do halftime, but let's do my halftime at halftime. So, my first topic is related to the gas tax, right? I saw this pop up the other day. And the gas tax, 18%. It's been around since 1993. And now we're really pushing electric vehicles, alternative fuel, really increasing fuel efficiencies on vehicles. What the heck's going to happen with the gas tax? Because that is really driving the bulk of the infrastructure that we have in our country. So I think that is defined as the vehicle mileage tax. Some people may refer to it as the VMT. And essentially, it doesn't matter if you're electric, gas, diesel, alternative fuels. It's basically based on how much mileage you drive. And I think it's inevitable. It has to emerge. And to be honest with you, at the rate that electric vehicles are moving forward, at the rate of alternative fuels, and the incentives and the way our government and the Biden administration is really pushing for it, I think we're going to be at a cliff pretty quick, because at some point in the not too distant future, if we don't have that aligned and have a plan to effectively transition from a gas tax to a vehicle mileage tax, we're going to see that revenue stream dramatically drop off. And then the discussions with bridges, infrastructure, roads is going to be paramount. It's going to smack us right in the face. The challenge with that is metering, and in my opinion. The challenge is that, okay, how do I know how much you drove your car today or last week, Pete? There has to be some sort of monitoring device. And anytime you have a monitoring device, I think it's ripe for fraud, right? Gas is gas. When your car runs out of gas, you have to pump more of it and get it in your vehicle. So it's easier to tax that. But if I have a device that just manages how far I drive and I'm able to manipulate it, kind of like old school rolling back the odometer on your car, I think that may be problematic as well. So I think that it is inevitable. I think a vehicle mileage tax has to happen. And I think it's going to hit us in the face a lot sooner than we think. And I haven't heard a whole lot of conversations about it. So I'm nervous. I'm nervous about what the electric vehicles, alternative fuels are going to do with gas tax and ultimately the infrastructure of our nation.
All I can think about is Ferris Bueller when he had his car up on the wheels and they drove it into the pool. And they were trying to make the odometer go backwards.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with this whole conversation, Doug. It's none of the government's business what I do with my car. It's none of their business to track me how many miles I drive on it. That already makes me angry enough. Mm-hmm. It is none of their business where I take it, what I do with it, how many miles I put on it, unless I'm running someone over with it, damaging property, or putting someone's life, limb, and property in danger. It is none of their business. So that's problem number one.
Yeah.
Problem number two, we should be working with incentives and not disincentives for the adoption of EVs. And there are so many fantastic incentives that we could be pushing to get people into these electric vehicles, not the least of which is how much more affordable that they are quickly becoming in the face of the technology that's being pumped into this country. This is a place where, as Americans, we can be incredibly proud at the leaps that we are taking in both battery technology and the ability for us to get that electricity into the EVs, our ability to recycle the parts of these electric vehicles, as well as just the adoption of them and how that is also driving the success of the platform. This notion that we have to beat people who are continuing to use gasoline as the mode of transportation, that we have to somehow shame them either fiscally or socially into changing what they're going to drive is ridiculous. If you are buying less gasoline and supply and demand changes, if you choose to continue to sell it, that's on you. But as fewer and fewer people are using it, that means there'll be fewer and fewer places to get it, which ultimately means that the price of it will go up because we're going to be exporting it to places where folks are not using EVs. This is a problem that will manage itself. Now, with regards to infrastructure, it's about time that we treated it as strategic infrastructure. And we didn't say that we're going to make the drivers and everyone else pay for it. There are very few things that as a country, we should be investing in whole hog, every heartbeat in this country. The ability to move goods, people, and our military from point A to point B undeterred is one of them. It's just not sexy to vote on infrastructure projects. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to save the Wisconsin wolf. Everybody, wants to do whatever other ridiculous project it is that's going to get them reelected. When in fact, we should be putting money into ports, airports, rail, bridges, roads, highways, you name it when it comes to infrastructure. We just have to take a good hard look at ourselves and say that this is more important than whatever pet project, Senator Knucklehead wants to have us put cash into next. So before I get political, which we don't do here, I will zip it and I will hand it back over to you.
Yeah. Well, valid points for sure. So I'm not really sure what transpired when I had to duck out of here for the fire alarm, but let me give you my my halftime, right? You always come, the Casey Kasem analogy, if you're bringing it hard, and then I come up with some quirky, funny comment. The yin and the yang works, I guess, so we can keep calling it the Casey Kasem factor. But I just want everybody to know that Fauci has officially said to go out and enjoy Halloween, which is great. My wife's a first grade teacher, so I'm sure the kids will welcome to hear that. Here's the funny part about that, Pete, is not many people will see this, but on a subtext below that, he said that we must give out full-size candy bars this year, which I think is a bunch of crap, but he says we got to make up for last year. So go out and enjoy Halloween, but Fauci says full-size candy bars. So I don't know about that aspect of it, but I'll tell you what, I'm all in for Halloween.
Why wouldn't you? Hey, I don't get any kids in my apartment building because it's like me and a bunch of 900-year-old people that live here. But if I had kids, I would give out like 2 or 3 full-size candy bars because that was always the cool house in my neighborhood. In my neighborhood, you know what? I can't remember who it was that told me. There was someone that told me that there was a dentist in their neighborhood that gave out full-size candy bars. They're like, yep, keep eating that sugar. The dentist in my neighborhood gave like floss and toothbrushes and stuff. What a ripoff. There was one, back in Texas when I was a kid, there was one super nice old lady that gave out full-size candy bars. This is, back in the 70s when life was in black and white, kids. And we loved this old lady. And we were absolute scumbags, me and my friends. Like we would egg your car, we would toilet paper. When we said trick or treat, we meant that, right? And so this lady knew. She knew, right? We never touched anything of hers, but there were people who, when the lights turned off or out of candy, it's like, yeah, mark that house down. We were like Dennis the Menace. We were the worst. And now, that I'm an older person, I think nobody ever acts that way anymore. It's like little kids behaving themselves, but it should be called trick or treat for a reason. You get what you reap what you sow, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And Doug, you need to go out and get the full-size candy bars. You need to believe the science. Fauci just gave you an order.
Well, I'll get. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to get like an entire case of mangoes from Sam's, and I'm going to put them in individual bags.
Don't be that guy.
No, I live in a neighborhood that has 10,000 kids for every square mile, and full-size candy bars will put me in. I can't do it. Folks here.
What was your favorite Halloween candy when you were a kid?
Well, my favorite hard candy would be Spree, if you remember those. And so I guess
no, your Halloween really candy. Like of all the ones that you got in your little yellow jack-o'-lantern, when little Dougie Draper was running around dressed as a ghost. Like what?
Yeah, the 3-pack of Sweet Tarts.
Oh, that's a good one. I would have fought you in the street and stolen your sack to take all your Reese's peanut butter cups. Like I would have curb stomped you like Ed Norton in American History X. And taken all your stuff and beat up your friends. Like we were terrible. We were awful. Like we were a roving band of revolutionaries. We stole everybody's candy. And I took Baby Ruths and I took Reese's peanut butter cups and Jolly Ranchers. Oh man, those were the greatest. And now I think about how lucky these kids have got it. There's no like trash candy. There's no, nobody gets like junky lollipops, and it's only good stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, if I got you this fired up and excited about Halloween, and it's only the 11th of October,
Oh,
I can't
awesome.
wait for the discussions in about 20
Awesome holiday.
days.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome holiday. I don't get to celebrate anymore. All right. So next topic. I know we got to get moving here. Next topic.
Yep.
You there's a lot being written right now, as well it should be, about the recoveries that are going on right now. The U.S. recovery, as you've well mentioned, Doug, started well before most of the rest of the world, and now we're beginning to see sort of those sparks that are happening in other parts of the world. And as those are happening, you are seeing a lot written. So if you just Google international trade news, COVID recovery news, on every page practically, there's going to be something sprinkled in there about the necessary equity of the recovery. Mm-hmm. What can we do to ensure that there is equity amongst nations in the recovery? That, as an example, that developing nations see just as speedy a recovery as the United States, Great Britain, France, et cetera, have seen in their recovery, and that it's beholden to these great Western economies, that they do what they need to do to make sure that these countries recover as well. And so there's two Pete Mentos. It's like there's the Pete Mento that's dressed like this on one shoulder, who's who's drinking a Fresca and vodka, who's like, since when do we care about other economies? Right? Like, to hell with them. We have people here. And then there's the other one on the other side who has like a nice suit on, and he's much more mature, and he's saying, no, everyone needs to recover together. We are better when we have partners who are stable, and instability economically in any country will ultimately result in instability in all economies, And I'm having a really hard time with this one, Doug, because as a man of advanced years, I do see the need for economic equity across the globe. But as an American who just saw, our economy on the brink, I'm definitely concerned about us being a little too worried about how everybody else is doing when there's still so much wrong right now economically at home. So This is a place where, are we being a little bit too concerned about the rest of the world and maybe not enough of a concern about our economy here?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. When you first started talking about this, I was thinking of Pete Mento Halloween circa late 70s, early 80s, because you just talked about bullying people, stealing candy.
I was a horrible person.
And running buckshot over everybody, which would be the shoulder with Fresca and vodka.
Yeah.
Right. It is an interesting topic. It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And much like yourself, I could go either way. I think you have to help yourself before you can help others. Right. Kind of like when you're on an airplane and they say put the mask on yourself first before you help the others. I mean, it's a pretty crude analogy, but I would probably be in that camp. Is let's get stable, secure, and then look to help others. But I don't know about a participation ribbon for everybody across the world. Let's get our economy dialed in and go from there. So I don't know. That's kind of political, but that would be my take. And that's what we're allowed to do on our own podcast.
I guess so. All right, Doug, bring us home, buddy.
All right. So the last topic that I have, and I'm going to pretend to be an economist, but I'm going to dumb this thing down, right? This is like Economy 101. This is not syllabus week, but this is like the first chapter of the intro book. And my topic is really, are the roaring 20s coming to an end faster than is expected and faster than I've preached on this show? And there's two things that have popped out. One, higher wages. They keep going up and up and up. And we've seen this in our industry for sure. Being in the warehousing racket, we're paying $4 to $5 more an hour, $4 to $5 an hour more than we did pre-pandemic. And obviously, whenever that happens, you got to bump prices, right? Because people got to pay for the higher wages. So at some point, that's gonna hit a ceiling. So is it happening too fast, right? I don't know the answer to that, but we're already seeing prices go up. You talk about food prices in different markets. I had a friend that was talking about um, mussels and crabs out in Baltimore. That there's just not enough people to go and find them in the ocean. They're there, they just can't harvest them. And so the prices for oysters is skyrocketed on the East Coast. So going back to our industry, you're already seeing FedEx and UPS come up with all kinds of charges to compensate that. And the other one that caught my attention is the higher energy costs that we're seeing all across the world. I think a lot of it made some attention out in Great Britain and even in Europe. But you can decide not to buy the flat screen TV, and you can decide not to go on vacation, but you really can't not decide to heat your house, right? So it's almost like a tax in some interested. So I don't know. I think the higher energy prices are going to add an interesting dynamic to this, and I don't think the Roaring Twenties are coming to a halt. But those are two things that really caught my attention. The wages do not seem to be going down. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these energy costs have really skyrocketed. So I don't think we're over with it, but I'm interested and curious to see what those two things are going to do. And hopefully there won't be this massive crash as there was back in the other 20s.
Okay, so about 60% of global GDP growth since the coronavirus started to wane has been in goods and not goods and services, but rather services. And the that massive recovery, a lot of it has to do with trading. It has to do with moving energy. It has to do with stocks and bonds. But a lot of it now has to do with restocking the world's economy. And America is enjoying unprecedented growth because anytime you turn the machine back on, there's going to be a kickstart to it. There will be some lessening of the madness, but this economy it's like I said to anybody who would listen, you could give a monkey a calculator and a pen and a piece of paper, and they could probably run this economy for the next 8 to 10 years. As the rest of the world begins to recover, we will all be competing for the same resources: shipping space, drayage, chassis, air cargo space. And competition is going to breed price increases, and price increases are going to mean more profits, and more profits should eventually spill over with that trickle down effect to more opportunity. But there's a limited space and capacity for what that's going to give you. As prices for things like energy increase, there should be some degree of inflation. The question is if it's transitory. I see where your head's at with this one, but I think that because it's been so acute so far, because it's mostly just been us, I think that as we see more and more of the recovery in Asia, particularly also in Europe, if that does begin to happen next year, I think that it may begin to maybe level out a little bit, but still be very strong in America. The wage thing is madness, man. The wage thing is crazy. How much we've got to pay people to get them to want to come out and work again in what they hope to be a safe environment. But that should begin to get a little bit better, I hope. And also keep in mind, a lot of people have made the decision that they don't want to go back into the old jobs that they had, doing things that they weren't happy with to begin with. Being home with their kids has made them readdress what they thought was important. And look at me, I'm not traveling like an idiot anymore. I made a conscious decision to change that part of my life. Yeah. So I think all of us are wondering, how long is this going to last when Dairy Queen is paying people $16 an hour to make blizzards? So, Doug, I think you've really tapped into a vein here of when will wage increases slow down, and when will people come back in droves to a marketplace that is, at this point, just thirsty for heartbeats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different animal, right? At some point, people's perspective and what's important in their life has changed. You just can't throw money at something to fix the problem. Let's pay a little bit more. I mean, we're chasing it, but the other intangible that we're dealing with now that hasn't been in the past is what you just said. It's more important for me not to travel. It's more important for me to stay with my kids. So bump it up to $25 an hour, $30 an hour. I guess at some point the numbers will hit and people will come back, but I think it's not as that wage is going to be a little bit higher than what we've seen in the past. So anyway, but all right, man, I'll let you bring us home. Go ahead. I'll let it.
With that, hopefully no more fire alarms. Doug, I was going to start screaming at you, stop, drop, and roll. If I saw smoke or anything, and you didn't grab. I was shocked you didn't grab Troy off the wall when you walked out. I was a little.
Well, he's metal. He's metal, so I think he's going to be. And it'd be a good story if he comes out all soot and grime. That'd be a good story. But I appreciate you thinking of Troy. He appreciates it as well. And I'm curious to see how Keenan's going to fuse all this together.
Edit it all together. Yeah, me too. But as always, we want to thank our partners at Cap Logistics who put this on for us every week and make it possible for us to wax poetic on issues of global trade, logistics, economics, and international trade. And we also want to thank Keenan, who's back in Colorado, stitching all this together for us. We wouldn't be able to do it without him. Although there's some weeks where we wish that we could, frankly. We're just kidding, Keenan. We love you, man. And we want to thank you in particular as well. If you want to learn more about Cap Logistics, you can visit them on their website at caplogistics.com. Please do follow them on LinkedIn and us as well, where we're always trying to drop knowledge. And if you got freight, you should probably call Doug. I got a feeling he'd love to talk to you. But that'll do it for us this week on Global Trade This Week at Cap Logistics. We'll see you again next week. Doug, as always, it's been a pleasure. See you again soon. See you, everybody.
Excellent. All right. Take care, Pete.